Hi, so my name is Abdullah, and today I'm going to be talking about the inclusive recruitment practices and the diverse workforce challenges. So the specific learning objective that I will be covering is the discussing whether inclusive recruitment practices and challenges for diverse workforce segments and like what these kinds of challenges are. So first, we need a little bit of organizational context. So what is BonusLink's ecosystem, and what is Malaysia's multicultural workforce landscape? This is very important because Malaysia obviously has been navigating through a very large digital transformation, as well as now like there's an increasing amount of different backgrounds of workers. So of course this is a challenge, and it can also be a strength for a lot of businesses such as BonusLink. But some of these challenges are going to be discussed today, and these could be things like selection bias, which might come from different, I guess, HR leadership. So one of the things that will be discussed is the theoretical frameworks for what we actually use within our analysis to figure out if there are actually challenges and how would we tackle these, and how do we deal with a diverse workforce in general. And there's going to be an evaluation of all business cases and whether this can help BonusLink at all. So BonusLink, in terms of their diversity, obviously it's been a business which has been a multi-partner loyalty system, and it connects more than 10 million members, such as Shell, Ambank, Parkson, and many more. In terms of the digital transformation, obviously there's the Chief People's Officer, Nicholas Toy, and because of him, BonusLink has transitioned from the traditional card rewards to more, I guess, high-tech fintech engine, which requires a lot more digital data and like AI analysis, and this has helped them a lot. In terms of the diversity landscape in Malaysia, Malaysia obviously has a very unique demographic landscape because it's a very multicultural nation, and it comprises of Malay, Chinese, Indian, and many indigenous populations. So of course this can bring challenges, especially with equitable representation. So HR has to navigate through these kind of multi-generational dynamics where they have to blend the Gen Z with the more experienced talent, the older workforce, and specifically people that may have disabilities, work disabilities, neurodivergent individuals, and just they need to represent people from all kinds of backgrounds, whether that be cultural or anything that makes them different. So to figure out what inclusive recruitment is, we need to know the aspects of it. Now, as a whole, inclusive recruitment is the process of identifying and attracting candidates through strategies that kind of eliminate the biases that are already in place and barrier entry points for individuals that might be talented, but they're not necessarily fairly represented within the community for whatever reason. That might be their work background, or that might be to do with their gender, or whatever it is. Now, in terms of digital channel diversification, one of the ways to kind of use inclusive recruitment is you use multiple different digital channels in the marketplace for suitable talent. So obviously with BonusLink, they have the LinkedIn Corporate Hub, they have the Hardly Tech Profile, but they can also use things like university campus drives, which can be very useful. And more importantly, they can also search through talents beyond what the elite universities have. So they can reach out to more universities so they can represent people from everywhere, because not all people might have the same chances at the education level. So we're going to look at the theoretical frameworks and how we apply them. There's 3 on there, but mainly we're going to be focusing on 2, and basically how they would affect both BonusLink and other businesses, and how BonusLink should incorporate these in order to have fair hiring practices. So the first one is the signaling theory. The signaling theory is basically where you use the job advertisements and EVP, which is like it's a method called employee value proposition, and you use these to signal the organizational culture. So This could be inclusive of different job descriptions, meaning there could be gender neutral wording. So the job doesn't have to be specific to a male or a female. It could be for anybody. It has to be gender neutral. And obviously there has to be some kind of flexible work policies that signal psychological safety, and they could attract, for example, in a business which is more geared towards male talent, it could attract female talent too, as they might feel excluded, and minority applicants who might otherwise not be there. The other framework is the ASA framework. So the ASA stands for attraction, selection, and attrition, and it explains homophily, which is basically like familiarity with people that are of a similar culture to you or a similar background to you. Now, with unstructured interviews, the people, HR recruiters within Bonus Link, they may select candidates which are similar to the existing staff, like just because they're a cultural fit. So for example, if they have a highly dominant like Malaysian workforce that's mostly comprising of males, they would be more geared towards selecting Malaysian males. And this would lead to like the organizational similarity just increasing. And this is obviously a problem because this doesn't include everybody else. The third thing is kind of linked to the ASA framework. It's the inclusion framework. And it's very similar to the ASA framework. It works by pushing away the hiring from assimilation, which is where you kind of force people to learn the culture that's already in place. And as opposed to that, they need to actually incorporate integration and learning. So you value uniqueness and you value belonging, and you use these together to ensure that the recruits, the people that are coming into the business, their talent is used for strategic innovation rather than like isolated. So here's some reviews of Bonus Link from externals. Now, they don't go into too much detail, but you'll notice with the two on the left side, the two on the left side, the rating's around 3.6, which is not great. It's all right, but it's not great. One of the comments that I found that doesn't go into too much detail was I don't know why there's so many spelling mistakes in that, but it was the lack of HR enrollment for employees. And so obviously there's good things and there's challenges, but if we go to the two screenshots on the right side, you'll find that the rating's even lower. This is from a different website, it's from Glassdoor, and you'll find that the bonus CAD loyalty snapshot is even lower based on 16 ratings. And one of the, I guess, the weak points that they actually have is the HR and the diversity and inclusion, because you'll see that the work-life balance is quite high. So this is something that they excel at, it's 4.2. However, their diversity and inclusion is 3.6, and their senior management is at 2.8, and the cultural values are at 3.3. So these are all values that are dragging the overall bonus CAD loyalty employee reviews down. So Bonus Link is going down because of these specific areas. So this is an issue for Bonus Link, and they need to address this. So there's a lot of segment sourcing challenges for Bonus Link and for other businesses, and these are, I guess, the most important ones. So there's obviously the multi-generational one, which is kind of self-explanatory. It's where you take employees that are from Gen Z, for example, younger employees, and you pair them up with the senior employees. And as you can see, the HRM driver there, it's to do with signaling, outdated signaling. You're trying to use a psychological culture that, for example, the Gen Z are not used to, and you're trying to incorporate that into the senior management, which might not work. As you can see, it says the impact on the Bonus Link, it's a high early attrition, which means that the younger tech developers, they're more likely to drop out or feel isolated. And there's also a difficulty attracting mature leaders because the younger talent is dropping out so fast. In terms of internal recruitment, it could make it very difficult to get some of your own people to go up as mature leaders. The second sourcing challenge that comes from the main issue is neurodiverse and people with working disabilities candidates. So obviously there's some things within interviews that are anxiety inducing, and for somebody that comes from a neurodiverse background, this can be very difficult. Now this is a problem because obviously with the standardized selection bias that already exists within lots of businesses, and it could be in Bonus Link too, they might take out that talent, and so that they might lose that talent overall because those people don't feel comfortable in these panels. The other issue is a very big one, the female career returners. Now females, they often have an issue with their resumes because they have resume gaps, and BonusLink treats this as an issue, or companies treat this as an issue because they penalize this when they're screening the filters, because they see this as like, for example, somebody has not been active very long, but they don't know why this could be. This could be because, like, for example, a female might be pregnant and they might have had to take a break, and so as a result, it could lead to some kind of unconscious gender bias, and so there's an underrepresentation of women in senior management. And the last sourcing challenge is the ethnic and regional talent. There's an affinity bias. So affinity bias is basically similar to what the ASA cycle tells us. It's you want to tend more towards people that you're already familiar with, a culture that you're already familiar with. So for example, with BonusLink, they have to make sure they don't stick to the monoculture of Malaysians in Malaysia, because that would mean that they would be excluding talent from other places, and they don't want to do this. So when we evaluate BonusLink's practice, we find that they have a lot of strengths. Obviously, their current leadership, specifically their chief people's officer, he's very good with flexible employee value propositions, so incorporating the younger and the older employees. There's a lot of cross-departmental mobility, and obviously there's a competitive salary benchmarking, so they get a lot of digital professionals. However, one of the limitations of this is that because they use traditional referral interviews, which are unstructured, once again, affinity bias would be present. They will lean towards people that they think fit the culture better, and this would eliminate other people that don't necessarily, they're not the traditional, I guess, workers. So an improvement opportunity for BonusLink in this case would be using a standardized assessment rubric, so testing everybody in a standardized way, and you take the early stage candidates and you evaluate them, and this would eliminate the demographic bias. So it doesn't matter what somebody's gender is or what somebody's age is, it will just eliminate this as a whole. In terms of the business case for inclusion and BonusLink specifically, we found that in terms of like the empirical evidence that we have across Asia Pacific, which is the region that BonusLink operates in, it's the case that companies that show more ethnic and gender diversity, they're 35% more likely to outperform other companies in that same industry. So obviously this is a really big gap. And with BonusLink specifically, if they use inclusive hiring, this can enrich their journey because they have 10 million plus diverse users. Obviously these users can relate more, this could bring in way more talent. So some of the HRM recommendations I would give to aid fair recruitment is, for example, blind CV screening. So you take away somebody's name, you take away somebody's gender, take away somebody's age in the earliest process. So there's no affinity bias. You don't say, oh, because this person's a female, this person's a male, we're not going to recruit them. You could use a structured panel interview. So this would make people feel more comfortable, people that have working disabilities, for example. You could also have a more inclusive job spec, meaning you run a job description through some kind of like text analyzer, and you go into disability talent portals and you use your job descriptions there too to attract those people as well. And then the last thing you could do is a kind of a structured and flexible employee value proposition channel where you have some kind of a design that's targeted towards female career returners, so people that are coming back from pregnancy, and it can kind of introduce them back into work by using smaller work attachments for people that are not necessarily specialized in the required area, and this way they would get the confidence to work in the required area. So here's a little implementation roadmap. They can start with obviously the screening and kind of blind testing the demographics, so stripping away somebody's demographic, their gender, their ethnicity. Then they can move on to training recruiters so that they don't have an unconscious bias. They start using a standard process, and that way they can't like pick somebody just because they feel familiar with them. Obviously there's sourcing expansion where they launch more blind screening tools similar to the first one. And the last one is an audit and a review where you look at the diversity metrics and you look at the 90-day retention performance. How did employees perform within their 90 days of them coming back? So the key findings I got is that there's the leadership and the strategic vision. Obviously, Nicholas Pui's vision for digital skill transformation. It's very connected to wanting to have inclusive recruitment. and it would lead to their growth because he puts EVP first. He refactors that. In terms of segmented talent strategy, obviously bringing this into play would mean that people that are digital natives, so they're used to working with like digital tools, they can work with the more mature workers, and this would combine the operational experience as well as, I guess, the ability to work with tech. And you can use the theoretical framework, so obviously the signaling theory, the ASA theory, and the Shore theory, which would kind of take away the shifting towards a culture fit and actually including everybody. And as we've already talked about it, the most actionable recommendations for these things: use an unbiased screening, make sure that there's basically no demographic that's making you pick somebody. Use a structured interview so people from any background will feel comfortable. And obviously you can use diversity key performance indicators where you check the recruitment metrics. That's it. And now I have 2 questions to ask.
Okay.
Yeah, so my first question is, how can BonusLink balance the AI recruitment screening tools with the risk of running into some kind of algorithmic bias against a non-traditional candidate? So in simpler terms, how can BonusLink avoid running into a problem when they're using AI? Because AI tends to use skewed data, so it can make up an unconscious bias against certain employees, against non-traditional candidates. So how can BonusLink stop that from happening?
I think personally what BonusLink could do to counter this, maybe have a group of people perhaps, or maybe 5 people.
Yeah.
Once they receive the AI's opinion, then they discuss about it and they vote whether or not this makes sense or is this biased or not, to prevent this from happening, in my opinion, I think.
Yeah.
Does that answer your...
Yeah, I guess it does. Yeah.
Okay.
And my second question is, with Malaysia, obviously, which is where BonusLink operates, it has a very multi-ethnic corporate landscape. So how can HR leaders tell the difference between somebody that's a genuine cultural fit and somebody that you might lean towards just because they're like Malay or whatever, just because you have a bias towards them? How can BonusLink and HR leaders in general, how can they distinguish between these 2 things?
That's a good question, actually. Yes, answer please. Do you understand the question? Yes. Yes, Karen.
Yeah, so how can they distinguish between the culture fit and the bias?
Yeah. Somebody that's a genuine cultural fit. So it's not just somebody you're leaning towards because they're Malaysian or whatever.
I'd say take a look at their work as well as how they work. Like, how do they fit into the work culture, as well as take into account like their progression in terms of their work. Like, are they efficient to daily tasks? Are they helpful? And see if they make a difference overall.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. My question is, good and equitable process of hiring, that what you are mentioning here.
Yeah.
Effective based on the number of people or size of the organization. How can I rephrase that? Would the equitable process of hiring matter, okay, based on the size of the organization?
Yeah, definitely. Because obviously, if it's a smaller organization, it will be a little bit more difficult for them to incorporate like equitable representation. Because obviously, with a smaller business, because they're working with like less employees already, and they're not looking to like expand at a massive rate. Maybe if they're in their earlier stages, they might just be solely looking for people that have like the experience, and they might have to use like a bit of affinity bias. So they might have to tend to people that are like that they're familiar with, so that they can like grow a little bit first, and then later on they can train these people to make decisions that make their organization more equitable in the future. And obviously with bigger organizations, yeah, it definitely matters because they do need equitable representation, because once they operate at a big scale, they're gonna want to draw talent from everywhere. They won't just want like one specific area of specialization. They want talent from everywhere. So they should look at people with any kind of background, whether they have like a working disability, whether they're from a different ethnic background, whether they're male or female. They should take into account both things.
Okay, well done. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.